Okay, welcome everybody to this meeting of the Development Control and Regulatory Board, 10th of June 2021. This meeting is taking place in the Council Chamber at County Hall, Glenfield, to allow for social distancing, though there will be some officers joining online via Microsoft Teams. This is a public meeting and it is being broadcast to the public via YouTube, and the YouTube video will be available to view afterwards as well. So as this is the first meeting of the board following the election, we've got some new members to the council and also new members to the committee. So I thought it'd be worthwhile if we just did some introductions first of all. So if we start on the right hand side, Mr. King.
Yes, Phil King, Market Harbour West and Foxton.
Mrs. Page.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm a substitute for Mrs. Amanda Wright, but my name is Rosita Page and I am the Division Councillor for the Lutterworth Division.
Hi, my name is Leon Heti Nicolaou and I'm a councillor for Rothley Mount Sorrel.
Good afternoon, I'm Richard Allen. I'm the new member for Earl Shilton.
Kevin Feltham, I'm the member for Gartree and I've been elected for the last 20 years.
Good afternoon, it's Brian Lovegrove representing the Beaver Division.
Neil Bannister representing the Broughton Astley Division.
Les Villimore, Cosby and Countersort Division.
Dean Gamble, OB.
Michael Charlesworth, East Wigston.
Thank you. And as some of you are new, you won't know all the planning officers that work here. So I'll hand you over to Nick, who'll just introduce himself as well.
Thank you, Ewan, and good afternoon, members. I'm Nick Thomas. I'm Head of Planning, Historic, Natural Environment and Chief Executive Department. And behind me, who's unfortunately not got a camera or microphone, sorry, is Oliver Meek. He's our Team Manager for Planning. Pass over to Anthony Cross.
Thank you, Nick. Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon, members. My name's Anthony Cross. I'm a solicitor. I'm Head of Law at the County Council, and I am one of the 3 lawyers that will service the Planning Committee or this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So we'll move on to the agenda of this meeting. And the first agenda item is appointment of chairman of the committee for the 2021-22 year. Now, Mr. John Coxon was nominated as chairman-elect at the County Council meeting on the 19th of May. Can I have a proposer and seconder that Mr. Coxon be appointed as chair? Thank you. Yep, thank you very much. Okay, so Mr. Coxon, you are now appointed chair of the Development Control and Regulatory Board for the 2021-22 council year. And now I'll hand over to you for the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ewan, and thank you for everyone that voted for me. The item number 2 on the agenda today then is the election of a deputy chairman. I'd like to move from the chair that Les Villimore is the deputy chairman of the Development Control and Regulatory Board. If someone will second that. Kevin? Are there any other nominations? Okay with that? Okay. Item 3. I propose that the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of March 2021 are taken as read, confirmed and signed and agreed. If someone could second that was here.
Second.
Thank you. Seconded, Michael. Item 4 on the agenda. I've not received any questions from the public. As of item 5, there's no questions from members either. Item 6, no urgent items. Item 7, declarations of interest. It is noted that all members who are also members of parish, town, district or liaison committee will have a personal interest in those applications which relate to areas covered by those authorities. Has anyone got any further interest to declare on any items on the agenda today? I think that's no you. Thank you. Item 8, petitions. I've received no petitions. So moving on to the agenda now then, the reason we're here this afternoon is item number 9 is revocation of 10 county council trees preservation orders in the borough of Oby and Wigston. And James O'Brien is going to lead on that. So James, over to you, please.
As you said, my name is James O'Brien. I'm team manager for
You there? James, are you there?
Yes, here. Sorry, yes, I'm here.
Oh, thank you, James. I thought we'd lost you.
Okay.
Yes, if you'd like to present your report then and probably just explain why you're doing what's being done. So if you just carry on from now, please, if you would.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so my name is James O'Brien. I'm team manager for environment policy and strategy at the County Council, and I'm presenting the report in place of Andrew Shaw, who was our tree preservation order officer up until the end of May, where he retired after over 30 years of service for the council, and he's been leading on much of this work for this report. To give a bit of background, because I'm conscious there are several new members to the board. So since 1947, under the 1947 Planning Act, the County Council, as the then planning authority, was active in making tree preservation orders. And between 1947 and 1974, 274 orders were made. But after 1974, the responsibility for local planning transferred to the district councils. And as such, the power to make new orders was transferred to the district councils. Leicestershire is one of only 2 county councils, Derbyshire being the other, that continue to administer their own pre-1974 tree preservation orders. All other areas transferred them to the relevant districts. So that's a bit of background to the TPOs themselves. And just to say that a TPO can cover an individual tree, a group of trees, or a whole woodland. So it varies from order to order, the number of trees that are included. So this report itself is to request the revocation of 10 county council tree preservation orders in the borough of Oby and Wigston. And this is part of a wider piece of work that actually started back in 2010 to kind of review and tidy up the county's TPOs, to pick out where trees no longer exist or where there may be trees covered by more than one protection, such as a conservation area. So, and it's also in keeping with government guidance that advises that tree preservation orders should be kept under regular review. Back in 2012, the board approved the carrying out of a pilot within the Oby and Wigston area to look at reviewing the 10 orders in that borough. And the result of that is today's report, where we're asking to revoke the 10 county orders in light of the fact that 7 new district orders have been made within the Oby and Wigston Borough Council, and to cover 7 of the existing county orders, and 3 of the county orders are now covered within a conservation area and are sufficiently protected under that particular protection. So the recommendation to the board is to grant consent to revoke the 10 county tree preservation orders set out in the table below. And the reason for this is that those orders, as I've already said, are now covered by district orders in the case of 7 of the county orders, and in the case of 3 of the orders are covered and protected by Oby and Wigston Borough Council conservation areas. And this is, as I said, in keeping with good planning practice guidance, and the making of the new tree preservation orders by the Borough Council is in accordance with current statutory provisions. And as I said, we're also trying to seek good governance in how we administer and manage our TPOs. The next number of slides then show the locations of the 10 orders, which I'll just quickly flick through. And these were in the main report as well. Oh, gone too far. So Chair, so the recommendation, as I said, is to approve the revocation of the 10 orders, county orders covered within the Oldby and Wigston Borough.
Okay. Mr. Charles.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to move this report. Couple of questions there about process. It's taken best part of 9 years to get to this stage. I'm just wondering who did most of the work? Was it the borough? Was it the county? Who bore the cost? And when do we roll this out to the rest of the county? Because as it says on page 8, it improves service delivery and it's in the interest of good governance. I would wish all the county to benefit from that, please. But if I could have an answer to those questions.
Yes, of course. So the work was shared between the County Council and the Borough Council. The County Council carried out the review of the existing orders, which meant physically going out to the sites, doing an assessment of the trees, checking that they were still there, checking that they still met the TPO requirements, etc., writing reports and so on. Once that exercise was done, it meant engaging with district and borough colleagues to organise the writing up, etc., of the district orders. As you can see from the table on the screen, it's taken, 2-3 years for the district to complete all 10 orders. So in terms of cost, it was done from existing staff resources and cost resources. And that's part of the issue, is that this work was done in addition to normal work activity. And that's partly why it's taken so long, is trying to squeeze this into all the other work that is required by the role.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, if I could come back.
Yeah, please do, Michael.
Is it being rolled out to the rest of the county?
We're still looking at that. As you said, it takes quite a lot of time. There's a lot of resource requirements involved. So we might be looking at other alternatives, looking at rationalising TPO orders where they may be covered by conservation areas or covered by existing protections as in our role as a highways authority. So we are looking at other options to rationalise that might be a little bit quicker, rather than looking at transferring or asking the districts to establish new orders in their place.
Okay. Michael's proposed it. Does anyone else want to speak? Anyone would like to second them? Mr. Phillimore? All in favour then? Thank you. That looks to be unanimous, Ewan. Next item on the agenda is item number 10, which is delegated tree preservation orders. These are work that's been carried out under officers' recommendation without obviously coming to a committee. So if there are any questions or comments from members on those delegated tree preservation orders, speak now. Mr. Bannister.
Thank you. Going through the list, I found the information very helpful, particularly in relation to where decisions have taken quite some time. There was a decision that took 21.4 weeks to determine, but there was a proper explanation. I just wanted to thank the maker of the report for putting that explanation in to avoid us having to ask questions as to why certain applications took so long to determine.
Nick, are you here? I can't. Oh, you're there. Did you wish to comment, Nick? Or? No. Okay. Okay, so we'll receive and note that item then, item 10. Moving on to item 11 is an application from Aggregate Industries for recycling and importation of processing, storage, sale of inert materials. That's being dealt with by Daniel Galpin. Daniel, are you here?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
I can now, yeah. Would you like to present the report, please?
Yes, of course. So thank you. My name is Daniel Galpin. I'm the case officer for this application. I think I'll just have to get to the right slide a second, I think. Sorry about this.
Quiet.
Sorry about this. I'm just having to go. I think just trying to find the correct slide. Can you see item 11, slide 28? Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, item 11 relates to a proposal by Aggregate Industries for the recycling and importation, processing and storage of inert materials at Bardon Hill Quarry in Colville. The applicant is seeking to import up to 300,000 tonnes per annum of inert waste, which would be brought onto the site using existing vehicle movements on return from primary aggregate deliveries. The waste would then be recycled and used to supplement primary aggregate sales from the quarry. So I'll just move on to the next slide. So as you can see, slide 3 shows Bardon Quarry, which is located to the southeast of Colville within the Northwest Leicestershire district. The quarry has an existing access from Bardon Road, the A511, which you can see on the picture. An existing employment area, the Bardon Hill Industrial Estate, is located directly to the southeast of the application site. It should also be mentioned that the quarry is rail linked. Slide 4 here shows a plan of the application site and provides a closer overview of the direct site surroundings. St. Peter's Church and the Bardon Hill War Memorial lie 200 metres to the southwest of the proposed development. Both of these buildings are Grade 2 listed. The original quarry void adjacent to the site to the northeast is designated as a special site of special scientific interest due to its geological importance. To provide some further site context, slide 5 here shows an aerial overview of the application boundary within the context of the wider quarry site. As you can see, the proposed operational area for this application is located within an area that has been previously used for stockpiling and is adjacent to the quarry void. The slide also highlights the location of 3 photographs which are on the following slides. Labels showing 3 viewpoints will form the basis for these slides. Slide 6 shows the view from Bardon Road looking towards the waste processing area. The path in this image runs between the church and hedgerows towards a public right-of-way, which is marked on the previous slide as footpath N59. All of the proposed waste stockpiles would be limited to a height of 10 metres, which would be controlled by a condition, that's condition 9 in Appendix A. Therefore, the proposed stockpiles will not be visible beyond the immediate surroundings of the site. Slide 7 provides a view from the main access to Bardon Quarry, where all HGVs returning to collect primary aggregate must access the site. Empty vehicles on return from aggregate deliveries will go through the main site, down an existing haul road to the waste processing area, where they will collect waste before leaving the site by turning left via the A511. This will also be controlled through a condition in line with existing controls at the site as set out in Condition 6 in Appendix A. Slide 8, next slide, sorry. So slide 8 shows a view of the waste stocking area looking east towards the proposed waste stocking area. The proposals would be similar to existing activities in this part of the site and are well screened beyond the immediate surroundings. The operational area is currently used as a stocking area and was previously used for the manufacture of masonry products, which is an activity that has not occurred for around 4 years. To explain a bit more about the process, the proposal involves the importation of up to 300,000 tonnes per annum of inert materials such as incinerated bottom ash, spent railway ballast, foundry sands, construction and demolition waste streams. This material will then be crushed and screened using mobile plants to produce secondary aggregate. Some of the products would then be sold as secondary aggregate, with 20 to 30% being blended with primary aggregate extracted at the quarry. There would be 4 main stockpiles to accommodate different waste streams. Any non-recyclable material would be removed and stored in separate containers prior to the removal to a final disposal facility. The stockpiles would be managed to ensure they do not exceed a height of 10 metres. As you can see here from slide 9, as well as by rail, aggregate from the quarry is currently distributed by HGVs within a radius of 60 miles, that's the yellow line. At present, the HGVs used for aggregate deliveries return to the quarry empty. The applicant is proposing that empty HGVs would be used to collect waste on their return journeys. That's within the radius in the blue line. The current site-wide quarry permission limits HGV trips to a daily average of 525, with no single day exceeding 575 vehicle movements. Condition 5 in Appendix A reflects the existing HGV levels and ensures that there would be no increase in vehicle movements from the combined quarrying and waste recycling operations. It should be noted that permission is being sought for a temporary period until the end of 2051. This reflects the permitted duration of extraction operations at the quarry. To provide a quick summary of the consultations, no objections have been received from any statutory or technical consultees, and no representations have been received from members of the public. Comments were received highlighting dust and air quality as potential issues by Councillor Mr. Keith Merry and former County Councillor Dr. Terry Eynon. To assess the proposal, the key spatial policy for this proposal is policy W4, which relates to non-strategic waste facilities outlined in the Leicestershire Minerals and Waste Local Plan. This guides proposals such as this to contain certain broad locations close to urban areas such as Colville. This proposal sits just outside one of the broad locations and there is some policy conflict. However, the conflict is limited and is outweighed by the benefits of moving the management of waste up the waste hierarchy and the preservation of primary aggregate, a finite resource. Impacts on the environment and amenity from the proposal have been considered through the application process. Particular attention has been given to dust and air quality, and no objections have been received by LCC's Public Health and the North West Leicestershire Environmental Health Team, subject to conditions updating the dust management plan and air quality limits. In summary, it is recommended that planning permission is granted subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix A as amended by the addendum report circulated. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. We have a speaker on this item this afternoon. It's Kirsten Hanniford Hill. You've been allotted 4 minutes to speak, Kristen. If you go over that time, you will tell you to stop talking. So start when you're ready, please. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to speak today with regards to the proposed inert recycling facility at Bardon Hill Quarry.
That's better.
Thank you. Aggregate Industries is a major supplier of a wide range of construction materials, which includes aggregates, asphalt, ready mix, concrete and cement. Bardon Hill Quarry is one of the company's strategic sites for the production of hard rock and asphalt in the UK. As a company, we are striving to improve our environmental credentials and are accelerating our green construction by joining Net Zero Pledge 2030 climate targets, which incorporates reducing our CO2 footprint, carbon capture and green building solutions. As part of delivering green construction, the company seeks to develop further our secondary recycling. Bardon Hill Quarry currently recycles waste asphalt on site, which is recycled and used in our asphalt production, reducing the need for primary aggregate and the removal of some waste from the landfill. The company would like to expand this principle of recycling of our aggregate business at Bardon Hill Quarry and seeks to supplement a proportion of our primary aggregate sales with recycled inert material for the life of the site. It is believed as an active mineral site in close proximity to Colville urban area, which is a growth area. Bardon Hill Quarry would be a suitable location for a waste recycling site. The company currently sells approximately 4.5 million tonnes of aggregate from Bardon Hill Quarry, and we would like to substitute 300,000 tonnes with secondary aggregate from inert recycled material. It is our intention to incorporate the recycle process within our existing operations to ensure there is no increase in environmental impacts to our local residents by the means of noise, dust, or vehicle movements. The proposed location of the recycling operation was chosen as it is close to our existing aggregate stocks. It is well screened by existing bunds and mature trees. The mobile crushing plant will be operated on a campaign basis during our normal operating hours. The mobile crusher will be a modern plant with dust sprays to dampen the product when screened, crushed and placed in a stockpile. The stockpiles and haul roads shall be maintained in a damp condition with the 4 water bars as we have on site. The company has 20 dust monitoring gauges around Bardon Hill Quarry, which includes a live PM10 monitor in close proximity to the recycling operation, which will enable the site to act quickly to any raised dust levels and implement any additional mitigation measures. All vehicles shall travel through our 3-wheel wash facilities when leaving site. The company also recently installed additional mist sprays along the exit haul road to reduce dust from vehicles leaving site. The company proposed to utilise our existing aggregate fleet in the collection of inert waste to ensure there is no net increase in aggregate HGV movements as permitted from the site. It is considered the proposed recycling operation at Bardon Hill Quarry offers the opportunity to divert waste from landfill, promote secondary aggregate sales, combine secondary and primary adult products through blending, which is a move towards a greener construction whilst maintaining high environmental standards on site. It is hoped the committee will look favourably upon our proposal. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. If you just remain there, I'm just going to ask any member if they'd like to ask you a question on what you've said this afternoon, not particularly what's in the report. Has any members questions? No, it looks like you're free to go. I understand that there's been no further comments from Councillor Merry or in fact Councillor Smith. So at this point, they'll throw it open to members. Les, did you want to speak, Les?
I did, Chair, but Rosita was first.
Oh, Rosita then.
Thank you, Chair. And I've got quite a few questions. Thank you for a very comprehensive report. However, there are a couple of points to which I am not clear. So my first question is in regards of point number 27, importation up to 300,000 tonnes per annum because it exceeds the T7 waste exception. What is a T7 weight exception and what are the limits? That's question number 1. Then it goes on in point 85 for the export of dry and coated stones. Now, I am not particularly bothered how that is monitored, but it refers to in point 89 and 86 to do not exceed an average of 525 lorry movements per day over any 4-week period. Well, I wonder, and I'm very keen to know how that is monitored, because if a lorry is a 7-ton lorry, and if you have 100 movements a day alone, we're talking 700 tons. If you have 500, so 300,000 tons is achieved in a very short period of time. So how do we know that it isn't achieved within a couple of weeks and then, constantly this is exceeded? So my question is, how is it being monitored, and if the monitoring is effective? My third point, it was slide number 6, which it said that it is conditioned in number 9. Now that slide number 6, if you can bring it up again, please, because I'm not clear on that at all. It's a very small rural road, and how are you expecting to accommodate 2 lorries passing on that small road? If you can explain that to me, because there would be a serious problem if one lorry comes in and one lorry goes out. So because if we are talking, going back to it, 500, a maximum of 575 lorries, we are assuming, and I like that clarified as well, going in, or are we talking in and out? So that's not slide, that's, go back to slide number 6. So, no, not that one. The small road on slide number 6, the small little country road. Or forward, is it forward? Keep going. That, stop. Now that road, right? Now if we're talking 525 lorry movement on that road, it will be absolutely decimated within a couple of weeks. So how do you account for that? Now, how can 2 lorries, if one goes in, and if we're talking 525 going in, we're talking 525 coming out. How are they going to pass on that road? So please explain that to me. And my very last question, and that is, I think, the most important point to me. And my very last question is, who is going to pay for the damage and the maintenance of those roads, and where is that conditioned? Because I can't see that anywhere, and I apologize if I missed that. So thank you very much. Over to you.
Daniel, I don't know whether you can answer all these or whether you will probably need Nick to help you with it. So I'll start with Nick first, perhaps, and then.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and I'll bring colleagues in just a moment. Sorry, excuse me, it's probably the microphone. Can you hear me now? Is that okay? Yeah. So quite a few questions there, and I'll bring colleagues in for different elements of the response. But the first question was around the you asked a question about the 300,000 tonnes per year and the reference to T7. So that will be the level at which a permit will be required from the Environment Agency, as I understand. We do have colleagues on the line from North West Leicestershire Environmental Health who can clarify that, because that's a point that they raised in their consultation response. But what that's effectively saying is, above that level, there will be a requirement for a permit from the Environment Agency, but that will be a different requirement from the planning application, which is assessed on its own merits and set out in the report the way we feel that's acceptable. So I'll bring my colleague in from Environmental Health in a moment. You raised a couple of highway queries, and I'm going to let Daniel and possibly Oliver in a moment just comment on that. I think the photograph you were looking at in relation to the highway road was demonstrating something different and wasn't the road that 2 lorries would pass on. I think that was demonstrating the impact of the height of the material in relation to the footpath and the church. So that was a different issue. The road itself wasn't shown on that photograph where the lorries would pass, but I'll let colleagues answer that one in a moment, and also the damaged road as well. I think there's also one about paragraph 85 as well, was your other question? Yes, so it's quite standard when we're dealing with this type of planning application in terms of monitoring the movement of vehicles and the amount of material that's transferred. So that would be, as I understand, secured by condition, but they would be required to keep records, and we'd be able to monitor how that material is and brought in, how often that's brought in, and the volume of material. So there'd be a requirement for them to keep track, and we'd have a robust monitoring regime where we periodically visit the site and check those sorts of records to make sure that's complied with. I'll just let my colleagues come in from the highway perspective and just answer those couple of questions. So perhaps if Daniel can comment first, and then maybe Oliver can pick up anything that Daniel was unable to cover.
Yes, thank you, Nick. Sorry if I don't hit all the points. I'm happy to take any follow-up questions. I'm sure colleagues can cover as well. Just to confirm, the image Nick was showing, or the image that was on the screen, Nick was correct. The intention for that image was just to show that the stockpiles is to kind of give a view from Barden Road and trying to illustrate that it wouldn't be viewable. It wouldn't be possible to see the actual processing area from the surrounding site, on the roads on the outside of the site. The main access area is the image on the previous slide. So just to confirm that presently as was confirmed, the site is limited to an average of 525 vehicle movements a day over a 4-week period, with a maximum of 575. One of the existing conditions attached to the main site-wide permission that was granted permission in 2011 requires that records are kept for, I think it's up to a 12-month period. We can request those at any time, and I monitor the site 5 times a year to ensure compliance with that. So we can request these records at any time. And so I got some of the figures for the most recent month. The average vehicle movements were 485 per day in May 2021, and then 469 in June 2021 so far. So they are within permitted levels. And I think the final point would be to say that because the 300,000 tons is in relation to a 3 million ton export per year, not all vehicles would need to be utilised. That on return from primary aggregate deliveries, the vehicles presently come back empty. So when the blue line on the slide 9 radius image, they would be collecting waste on return from aggregate deliveries, where it would be brought back to the site. I hope I've if colleagues want to jump in there, if I've missed anything, I apologise if I have. I hope that clarifies some points.
Chairman, may I come back, please?
Yeah, please.
So just to recap then, the small road on slide 6 is not being used. It is the large road. Okay, so then who is responsible for the maintenance of the road with 525 lorry movements over a year on a daily basis? I mean, it would get a lot of wear and tear. So who is responsible, and is that conditioned? The responsibility, is that responsibility conditioned?
Daniel?
If it's okay, I'll address that question. Thank you. So just to set out, the wider Quarry site has a condition on it that restricts vehicle movements, as Daniel's referenced to 525. There is a condition within this permission, within the recommended conditions, that would ensure that this activity, in combination with the existing quarrying activities, do not exceed the current permitted HGV movements. So this activity would not result in any increase in HGVs over and above what is currently permitted. I think in answer to your question about who's responsible, the current site access, which is an existing site access, is onto the A511, which is a road that the county council as a highways authority is responsible for. So it is a Leicestershire County Council highways road. However, I think it's really important to reiterate that this application would not result in any HGV movements above what is already permitted.
If I may come back again, because I'm not quite clear yet. So if we are talking a license for 300,000 tons per annum, and so if the lorry movements then are monitored, and that 300 ton has been achieved, say within 3 or 4 months, can they then carry on, or how do we know, or do they stop? I'm not quite clear over that.
No, it's a good question. It's a valid question. Once they hit that maximum, then that would be the permitted amount. They wouldn't be able to continue beyond that. So that would be the limit. I'm just trying to check what the condition is at the moment, so if you just bear with me 2 seconds. Yeah, so it's part of the transport assessment. So the documents that are submitted basically control that, limit it to that amount of vehicle movements. So the controls we have in place would be regular monitoring, as Daniel's mentioned, and that would then flag up any particular issues if they're getting close to that limit. So we have control.
Thank you. So what I understand then, regular weighing and monitoring.
Exactly.
Les.
Thank you, Chair. I'm kind of just picking up on Mrs. Page's points about the overall number of movements versus 300,000 tonnes, because that's not many actual movements that needs to move 300,000 tonnes. I'm just not a typo, is it? It's not 3 million tonnes. 300,000 tonnes for 40-ton HGV or whatever they're moving it in. It just doesn't seem quite right. But anyway, you've got it monitored. I think one of the points, again, picking up on Mrs. Page's comment, is there may not be more movements about highway maintenance, I think is Mrs. Page's point, but the actual tonnage that will move on that highway clearly will double, because they're now bringing in what were empty HGVs that will be fully loaded, which oddly I commend the operators for maximising the use of vehicles and not moving air around. So I think for that one, well done. But actually, as far as highway maintenance, picking up on Mrs. Page's point, maybe it's difficult because we can only just assess the application in front of us. But I'm kind of with Mrs. Page on the number of movements versus 300,000 tonnes. It just doesn't feel quite right. So whether we just want to take a couple of seconds to just do some quick numbers on a calculator, or are you quite comfortable and confident that when they hit that with the monitoring system, what do the operators then do? Do they have to come back to us or the EA and ask for an extension, or how does it actually work? Was that clear? Nick?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just checking the report, just two moments, if that's okay, Chairman, just for some of the details in there. But it certainly is an application for 300,000 tonnes per year. That is what's been applied for. That's what the assessment of the application is for. If you just give me a moment, I want to just check a couple of details.
Can I just clarify, are you concerned that 525 vehicle movements per day isn't sufficient to import 300,000 tonnes?
With Mrs. Page, the quantity of vehicle movements permitted seems to be vastly more than is required to shift 300,000 tonnes. So hence, is it 3 million? Is it a typo in the report?
Yeah, okay, I think, but I apologise if I haven't been quite clear enough with this. So at the moment, we have an existing quarry that's in operation, and that quarry, in the absence of this development, has permission for 525 vehicle movements per day. At the moment, they're not using, or over the last couple of months, they're not using all of that. They used maybe 480 over the last couple of months. But most of those vehicle movements would be associated with the existing quarrying operations, the extraction and distribution of that aggregate. What this proposal seeks to do is ensure that it does not increase the amount of vehicle movements that are permitted from that site. So it would retain the existing 525 limit, and this operation in combination with the aggregate extraction operation would still stay within their existing permitted limits.
That's fine. Thank you, Chairman. But on reiterate, may I just commend the operators for actually making use of what is otherwise moving air around to actually maximise the efficiencies. I think that's a very inspired move. So thank you.
Okay. Mr. Allen.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. Just try and help my colleague out. A quick back of a fag packet calculation. If you use an average 8-wheeler, 18 tonne, 500 movements, 50 weeks, puts you about 500,000 tonnes per annum. So again, there's a concern about this 300,000 tonne limit per year, and exactly how robustly that can be monitored, checked, and enforced. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Yeah, Chairman, absolutely, it can be monitored and enforced. We have these sorts of permissions throughout the county. We have a robust monitoring regime where we check and assess that sort of detail on a regular basis, and this is no different to how we do that. We have a good relationship with these operators, and we have this information very regularly. We share this information and can monitor it.
Okay. Michael, did you indicate? No. Mr. King.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I got a query about air quality and the monitoring of air quality, and I'm just wondering whether you mentioned somewhere in the presentation about there's live monitoring of the, I think, is it the particulate issue? I'm just wondering, is that live monitoring accessible to the public on a public accessible website? I'm thinking here of a situation I have in the locality where I live, where we have an AQMA, and the air quality monitor is actually published on the government website for residents and community to see. So I'm just wondering, is that the sort of live monitoring we're talking about, or is it live monitoring that the operator sees and then that triggers a response? So I'd just like some clarity on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so there's a requirement for dust and air quality monitoring, condition 13, as part of the planning condition, the recommendation. And that would need to be carried out in accordance with condition 46 of the 2010 permission. That sets the limits for standards for what air particulates will be emitted. And that information would be available. So where there's a requirement for monitoring and that information is submitted, that will be published to the application file and be available for inspection if people want to see that. So it's all publicly available and transparent. So that condition effectively sets out how the dust and air quality emissions will be monitored, and it sets out the standards of what need to be complied with and be demonstrated in the information submitted. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, please carry on.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Nick. No, what I was really getting at is, will that information, so yes, you keep it, there's a record that people can come and inspect. Where do they inspect that? Is that available public access on a website, or is that in somebody's office in a paper record? I'm just trying to understand where that is, or is it in a live online format that people, residents can see and monitor, anyone can see and monitor, on a 24-hour basis, as I think is indicated in this report. that's immediately available to anyone to see. So if they were concerned about it, they'd be able to view it. And I'm just citing the example of there is an AQMA in Kibworth actually where there is a live monitoring and people can view the data live on the website, Chair. That's the only point I was making.
Yeah, if I could just come back, Chairman. Yeah, apologies if I wasn't clear. So it's probably slightly different in that the information it wouldn't be live published to the website so people can see 24 hours a day, but all planning information that would be submitted against those planning conditions would be available on the planning file and available for inspection or for sharing. So it would need to be a request from a member of the public had a specific question around that. They could ask that question and we would supply that information if we had it. So it wouldn't be necessarily published 24 hours a day, live online for people to view in that way. That's similar to a lot of the technical information that we get. Everything wouldn't necessarily be published to the website. It's not the same as when a planning application is submitted, when all that data is clearly submitted and published to the website. This is with more technical monitoring data that we would store and record as part of the planning file. It's available if people to request.
Okay, Mr. Gamble. Did you indicate, Mr. Gamble? Sorry? Yeah. Just can you just hang on, Mr. Gamble?
So thanks for that, Nick. So what I think is that to me that's not very transparent. Members of the public are rightly concerned about public health and impact of particulates on their health, and I think to say that we're going to just have it in the planning file and that someone has to submit a request to then access that information, that's not really very transparent and it's not very open. And I think perhaps some thought needs to be given, Chair, as to how that might be done and make that information more transparent and available for members of the public who, after all, are taxpayer, to actually access that information rather than have to make a formal request and then somebody to actually enact that and actually send it to them. I mean, I'm not criticizing. It's just I think we just need to bring that into the modern day, perhaps, Chair.
That's helpful feedback, and thank you for that. I was just going to suggest that we've got the environmental health officer from the district council who's available to can ask him to add any additional points to the response that I've just given, in response to Mr. King's question. Is that okay? Helpful. So we've got Gareth Rees on the call.
Hi, Gareth Rees for Environmental Health at North West Leicestershire District Council. Yeah, Barden Quarry have got several different types of monitoring for dust around their site. The issue with making the data public around dust particularly, there's a few different pieces of equipment. They've got what's called a Partazol PM10 monitor. There's a few of those around the site, which are located close to where people are affected. They only monitor a daily average. It's not a live data feed. And that data requires a lot of quality assurance on it, which Barden Quarry employ a specialist to undertake. And that data is fed back to both ourselves as part of their environmental permits and to county planning on a regular basis, along with data from what are called Frisbee gauges, which are a way of measuring nuisance dust. And again, they measure an average deposition rate over a period of a month. So there's not really a way of doing that live. The piece of kit they've got on site is called an Osiris, and it's useful for more of a we need to check what's going on than a useful indicative number that you get out of it. The piece of equipment is quite sensitive to environmental conditions, and if you're not aware of those conditions and really paying attention to what that piece of equipment is giving you as a number, it can look it doesn't give a realistic picture of what is occurring on site. So for example, if it's foggy, the piece of equipment will pick the water particles up in the air as dust. So the fog will cause the piece of equipment to read really, really high, which if you're not paying attention to those weather events, don't give a realistic view of what is occurring on site. So you need to be aware of that when looking at the data, which is the issue of making that data like public on a live system. And it would be for process management. So they would have it running. It will alarm to say that the meter is reading high, and then they would need to assess what that meter is giving them as to whether they need to take actions with regards to increasing levels of damping, or a piece of equipment is faulty, or whether it is just that the weather at the time is causing the equipment to read and read incorrectly. So it's not really a reading that could be made public.
Okay. Mr. Gamble.
Thank you. I've literally just come off my holidays, and my friends who live in Markfield and in Whitwick have asked me, when I mentioned that we've got to get back because I've got this development control meeting, and when I mentioned that we've got an application barred in Quarry, their only thought was, who's going to source out the dust and the crap on the A511? It's appalling. Now, I don't know the area, but that was their initial response to this application. So I just want to know who actually cleans the A511 around the quarry. Thank you.
Nick, that all delegated.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So with any quarry permissions, there are controls in place in terms of wheel wash requirements. So that will be controlled under the original permission. And that will be obviously in addition to the normal statutory responsibilities we have as a highway authority. So it's not necessary that all dust is being created and all dirt is being deposited on the highway as part of this operation, although clearly there will be elements that will be, and that's a requirement of the planning permission. So my colleagues just passed me the required condition. It's condition 7 on the original permission, which requires all HGVs not to leave the site without passing through an efficient wheel cleaning system.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, according to my friends, the condition simply doesn't work. That's all I'll say on it. Thank you.
Mr. Lovegrove.
Thank you. Reading through the application, you can clearly see the amount of tonnage they're applying for, which is very good, like our colleague has said, about the not only bringing back lorries which have got aggregate in instead of being empty, but it also is recycling waste product back into new product, which has to be a good initiative. I think there may be some confusion over the figures because the limit on the amount of vehicles in and out of the quarry is staying the same. It clearly states how many tons they're going to be bringing back into the site. That doesn't mean every one of the 525 lorries is bringing material back onto site. It clearly says there's 300,000 tons. As long as that is audited by the council to make sure that is not exceeded, I can't see a problem with that. But also, just to reiterate the comment about the loaded vehicles returning could have an impact on the highway outside because of the weight that is going both out and back in again.
Nick. No. Okay. Well, it's recommended permit. I haven't had anybody want to put anything forward yet. Is there a proposal for anything at the moment? Michael.
Yeah, move the report, Chair.
Is there a seconder? Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen, seconder. All in favour? Looks to be carried. Moving on to item number 12 then, which is Aggregate Industries UK Limited proposed internal extension material extraction from Croft Quarry. And Nick Bowden is going to present this. Nick, are you online?
Yes, hello, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, if you could just present your report now, please.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
So can everyone see that okay?
Just before we start, could I just ask, is it possible to turn up the internal sound a bit, Ewan? So I think we're all struggling with hearing internal speakers.
It's very quiet. Stereo, it's not very. Yeah, can do.
We'll sort it out before we start the next presentation. Sorry, is the sound problems that bad that we need to sort get it sorted out before we start the next presentation? Okay, should we take a recess then? Okay, if that's okay with the chair, then we'll take a 5-minute break then.
5 minutes, if you can fix it in that would be good. Okay, Nick, are you there? Do you want to start again now, please?
Yeah, should I just test everyone can hear me satisfactorily? It's a little difficult to judge from remotely.
That's much better.
Okay. Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Nick Bowden, Principal Planning Officer to the County Council. Next item, as with previous, is made by Aggregate Industries and proposes a lateral extension to the mineral extraction area within Croft Quarry. The access and ancillary development and restoration, lateral extraction within Croft Quarry, access and ancillary development and restoration of the site via importation of restoration material. Croft Quarry is a long-established hard rock quarry located north of the village of Croft and south of the village of Hunker. The site comprises an area of 111.5 hectares, which includes the existing mineral extraction area, the aggregate railhead, ancillary processing plant, asphalt plant, concrete batching plant, and concrete product manufacturing facilities. The material extracted from Croft Quarry is regarded as a valuable material which is used nationally and is a significant resource. The existing site is arranged with main quarry workings towards the northwestern part of the site, with ancillary processing and concrete batching towards the east and south. The railhead, which connects to the national rail network, is located towards the south. Restored land is set to the far north and east and includes New Croft Hill, which is an artificial feature made from previous overburden and arisings. The central part of the site has largely been cleared of former quarry works buildings, pending the extension over this area. This can be seen more easily in the fairly recent aerial imagery, along with the main quarry void and other ancillary works. Some concern has been expressed regarding the loss of existing countryside and fields. However, the extension of the existing void is to be contained to the existing quarry area to the south and east of the existing void. As you should be able to see on this slide, it's the grey area to the south and east of the current void. Access to the site is presently taken from a dedicated access road called Marion's Way off Coventry Road. This is a purpose-built junction capable of handling a high number of vehicles from the main road without having to pass through the nearby villages. The main void, shown in this photo, presently extends to around 139 metres below Ordnance datum. Final extraction from the permitted scheme is presently occurring, with works expected to conclude in this area in the next few months. Following this, the remaining void would start to be filled, initially using overburden from the new site. Part of the new site is shown in this photo towards the back. Please note this picture was taken prior to the clearance of buildings and some of the remaining extracted material. Other parts of the site would retain ancillary facilities, including the cement facility shown in the back of this picture, Weybridge to the left, and part of New Croft Hill in the background. Further ancillary operations include concrete block manufacturing, shown here. Other existing ancillary operations, such as the central administration area, slightly off to the right of this picture, would also remain. The application seeks permission for a lateral extension to the mineral extraction area, placing overburden within the quarry void, relocation of the processing plant, relocation of stocking areas, workshop, weighbridge and wheel wash, relocation of rail infrastructure within the site only, relocation of office accommodation, recycling area, and restoration of the quarry void by the importation of inert waste. The proposed extension area would expand the existing quarry operations, covers 5 hectares, and comprises the extraction of approximately 6.3 million tonnes of mineral. The new mineral will be extracted from an area which was, until recently, used for ancillary operations, including material storage, concrete batching, and other quarry-related buildings. The expanded quarry operations would result in further extraction over the next 17 years, with the existing and enlarged quarry void backfilled with imported construction, demolition and excavation waste, to conclude with the final restoration at year 22. Overburden from the extension area would be removed and placed within the existing quarry void. Mineral will be worked via blasting. It is estimated the extension will work to a depth 20 metres below ordnance datum. Initial processing of the resultant material will be undertaken using mobile plant either at the quarry face or in the southeastern corner of the site adjacent to Newcroft Hill. Following the placement of the overburden within the existing void, it is proposed to import approximately 14 million cubic metres of inert waste at a rate of up to 750,000 cubic metres per annum in order to restore the void. This would raise the base of the void to around 30 metres AOD. This remains below surrounding ground level. Main issues that have been considered in the assessment of the application include the principle of continued use of the site for mineral extraction and restoration using imported inert waste, climate change, noise, dust and air quality impacts on the local and wider environment, local amenity, public rights of way, ecology, landscape, vehicle routing, transport via road and rail, restoration and aftercare of the site. The amount of material to be imported is substantial, equating to 21 million tonnes in weight. On an annual basis, this level of imported material would nearly eclipse the amount of material available county-wide, and therefore, if sourced locally, could undermine the purpose of the county's mineral and waste plan and deprive other sites throughout the county of being able to be restored in a timely manner. Accordingly, the applicant has proposed that a significant proportion of the material is imported by rail from London and the South East, which has a significant shortage of locations to reclaim this type of material. Much of this material will be from major infrastructure projects, including HS2 and Crossrail 2. The applicant would take advantage of the railhead of the site and import the overwhelming majority of material from London and the South East by train. Trains would typically make deliveries to the site overnight in order to minimise impacts on the national passenger network and conflicts at local level crossings. This nevertheless remains a substantial distance of around 96 miles and will potentially introduce a large amount of greenhouse gas emissions through transportation over this large distance. The Council commissioned an independent report into the transportation of material over this distance, being mindful of the county's declared climate change emergency. In summary, the report concluded that importing material by rail over this 96 miles was broadly comparable to transporting the same amount of material over a distance of 21 miles by HGV. It reviewed other sites across London and the South East. Notwithstanding the distance to Croft from London and the South East, the quarry still compares favourably to other sites on a tonne-for-tonne basis due to the ability of Croft to accept imported material by rail. This is illustrated in the graph here, with Croft on the far left and as the dashed line that shows the relative greenhouse gas emissions between other available sites when taken from a median point in London. The overall carbon impact of the entire infill process is the emission of around 170,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide, which reduces to 164,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide 25 years after revegetation. If the waste were to be transported elsewhere using increasing distances to reclamation sites as closer sites are filled, then the alternative sites transfer emissions is nearer 168,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide. This suggests that transporting waste locally by HGV would increase the overall greenhouse gas emissions instead of transporting it by rail to Croft Quarry. Therefore, on balance, the importation of material to Croft remains a largely neutral operation compared to alternatives. It is proposed to restrict the quarry to no more than 5% locally imported material by HGV, which would be delivered by road. The routing of HGVs to Croft would remain as per the long-established and agreed routing. Specifically, this would be using strategic routes and motorways in the vicinity of the site and avoiding smaller villages and rural areas. The resultant land profile can be seen on this slide, which also indicates the depth of the existing void and that of the restored site. As can be seen, much of the site is set at a lower level than surrounding land and includes the exposed rock face of the existing quarry, which is a site of special scientific interest due to the exposed rock formation as a result of quarrying operations. Following extraction, the site will be restored to an open mosaic habitat, as can be seen here. This includes a mixture of habitats, wetlands, woodlands and grasslands, which also includes the retention of a proportion of the exposed quarry rock face. The restoration scheme is considered to be a high-quality scheme which assists in providing a local nature habitat in addition to offering a recreational facility that includes walking trails for local residents. Other matters of concern, such as noise, light, dust, and vehicle movements, are all controlled by way of conditions on the Planning Commission. These conditions are largely the same as those applied to the existing site, which generally operates without notable complaint. A Section 106 legal agreement to modify and extend the existing legal agreement would be put in place to cover issues relating to traffic, vehicle routing, monitoring, local liaison committee, and long-term aftercare. Although the application features a number of finely balanced issues, it is considered that, having regard to the nature of the material, that this is an expansion of an existing quarry with infrastructure in place, and the high quality of the restoration scheme with community access, the planning permission be granted, subject to conditions and completion of Section 106 legal agreement. Nick, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
With your permission, sorry, do you mind turning your microphone? Thank you. Hopefully that was clear what Nick's presentation was. I just wanted to make the point. This is an application that's been with us for a couple of years. It's an extremely complex application and one that's unusually led us to take external consultancy advice on in relation to the carbon emissions. And you'll have heard from Nick the conclusions of that assessment, and it's also set out within the report. So the only point I wanted to make and add to what Nick's presentation is, first of all, to emphasise that this has been very, very carefully looked at, and the environmental impacts of bringing in material such a large distance from the southeast has been weighed up with, first of all, against the alternatives, so where else that material could go to, but also compared with balanced against the restoration, the quality of the restoration proposals, which is one of the best we've seen for many years in one of our hard rock quarry proposals, and has been sort of commented on by the council's ecologists as extremely high quality. So that's all I wanted to say. It's recommended for approval. You'll see there's lots of conditions in there to control the impacts, and we believe that the balance is right, and that's why we're recommending that permission be granted today, Chair.
Okay, Nick, thank you. We all have received a letter from Maggie Wright, the division councillor, who is in general to be in favour of the application. I've got a speaker who's speaking on behalf of the applicant, which is Liam Toland. If you'd like to start when you're content to, Liam, you have 4 minutes, and again, Ewan will tell you to stop talking after that time if you're still going. So when you're ready, thank you.
Dear Chairman and members, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am the planning agent for the application representing Aggregate Industries. Firstly, we must commend the planning officer's report. It is thorough, properly balanced, and reflects the careful and detailed consideration of the application that has taken place. Croft Quarry is a major contributor to the local economy, and it is estimated that this contribution equates to 8 million per annum. Furthermore, the proposed development would secure a large number of jobs in an area where there are limited alternative employment opportunities. The council should note that the quarry is recognised by the local community as a key local employer. The local parish councils have no objections to the proposal, and there are no objections from statutory consultees in terms of traffic, noise, air quality, landscape or ecology. In terms of mineral extraction, the development will result in a steady and available supply of high quality mineral for a period of many years. It would also result in the utilisation of existing quarry infrastructure in a more sustainable manner than establishing an entirely new quarry site. In terms of the restoration scheme, the submitted planning application has shown that there is a demonstrable increase in inert waste to be generated from large infrastructure projects in London and the southeast of England over the next 20 years. Croft Quarry has the advantages of excellent access to the national rail network, along with historically proven pathing to and from London and other markets. The utilisation of such material will help provide a beneficial restoration of the site and biodiversity gain compared to the alternative of just letting the quarry void naturally fill with water. The benefits offered by the restoration scheme are supported by Natural England Leicestershire and Rutland Wildlife Trust, and the Council's Ecology and Landscape team. It is proposed that the majority of imported restoration material would be transported by rail, approximately 4 trains per day. The current planning permission at Croft allows for the loading, movement and servicing of trains to be carried out at any time. In terms of HGV movements, the company will continue to adhere to the existing HGV routing and control of impacts of HGVs, which are set out in the Section 106 agreement. Environmental measures have been considered with regards to impacts from ongoing excavation and waste being received via rail. It should be noted that Blaby District Council, who act as environmental health monitors of the site, have no objection to the proposed development in terms of noise, dust, blasting and lighting subject to the imposition of conditions. A number of benefits are proposed for the local community, including the establishment of a community fund for Huncut and Croft Village, with the fund financed by the importation of the restoration material. Furthermore, as part of the application, AI have committed to make improvements to the existing public rights-of-way and create new permissive routes around the quarry. Clearly, we support the recommendation and respectfully ask the committee to grant permission subject to appropriate conditions. In doing so, we can confirm the company's commitment to continue to liaise and work with both the council and the local community to properly control the operation of the site. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Liam. If you just remain there, I'm just going to ask any members if they want to ask you anything on what you've just said, not on the report. Mr. Bannister.
Thank you, Chairman. Through you, could I just ask a question about the community fund that you've just referred to? It's my understanding that that fund is hoped to be used for environmental projects within the parishes that are affected. I note in the report there was also a request for some sort of community facility as well, as opposed to the environmental improvements. Would it be the applicant's view that this fund could be used for a community facility as well as the environmental improvements?
Aggregate Industries work closely with villagers from both Croft and Huncut, and I think they have discussed using it for a village hall. So I think Aggregate Industries would be supportive of that.
Okay. Rosita.
Thank you. And guess what? I haven't got an awful lot to say. I think because we can't leave this report without making a comment, because oh, sorry. Nothing to the speaker.
Okay. Thank you very much, Liam. It is recommended to permit, as it's been said, but obviously open to members now. Oh no. Rosita.
Oh, well, I have got nothing to say, but I feel that this is such a complex application and that this report is so detailed that one must commend the officer on this. Because, for instance, if I can just be a critical friend and refer back to the last report, if you look at point 173, where it clearly points and answers Councillor King's previous point in detail, or if we are looking, and just for example, at 341 and 342, that really explains to us as laymen how these matters are dealt with and overcome. So I'd just like to congratulate the speaker, the report writer on this. The other point I would like to make, it is that I commend the way the applicant is working with, as he just said, with the district council over the section 106, and we are also noting in 173 that they're working together to the monitoring of the dust samples, etc. So all around, I think it is a very good report, and I do not hesitate in any shape or form to move that for recommendation.
Thank you, Rosita. I'm sure that the officers and applicant will be pleased to hear what you've said. It's nice to hear that they've done something right for once. It's been a second proposed by Rita. Is there a seconder for that? Les, did you want to speak, Les?
Yes, please, Chair. So I think firstly and most importantly, I would echo exactly what Mrs. Page has said. Having read the report word for word, I feel as though it probably took 2 years to write as well, one way or another. It was a very comprehensive, very detailed report, so hats off. 2 questions really, 3 points, 2 can be taken collectively. And it's to do with concerns raised by Blaby Environmental Services, points 116 to 122, just that those points have been satisfied. And then simultaneously or similarly, the county ecology on point 131, just that the points have been satisfied. And then I've got a general question, which actually may be more for Nick, is a lot of this and conditions of forward planning for restoration. What happens in the event, don't take this the wrong way, if the operator ceases to exist? So do we bank commuted sums, or I'm just curious what the legacy would look like in a very, very unfortunate event. So back to the officers, I guess, first. So one's just a general inquiry and the others have the points been satisfied. Thank you, Chair.
My understanding certainly, Chair, that it is that those points have been satisfied. I'm going to bring Nick in first to answer that point, and I'll come back on the second point if that's okay.
Hi, yeah, in relation to 116, which was environmental health, and 132, which was ecology, if you look at that part of the report, that was actually their observations in response to the initial consultation, which was now quite some time ago. The application was actually subsequently amended following those initial concerns, and you scroll down to somewhere further down in the report that, because it's so long, I can't find off the top of just quickly. However, to summarise, yes, the concerns of environmental health and the ecologist have been satisfied through various amendments and revisions. Indeed, in relation to the restoration plan, that is actually as a consequence of those initial comments and was negotiated with the applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Les.
Chairman, just picking up the final point that Mr. Phillimore raised. There's not an easy answer to that one. Thankfully, it very, very rarely happens. I don't recall situations where large quarry sites have been abandoned or where the operator perhaps runs into financial difficulties. But what I would say is that the permission runs with the land, so any future landowners, whoever acquires the site, will be bound by the same terms, and that will give us the confidence that the restoration will be completed in accordance with the planning permission.
Thank you.
Questions answered. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Nick.
Michael.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, good points. The restoration looks very good. No problem with that. By train, yeah, I agree. Get vehicles off the road, use the train. Not happy it's coming all the way from London. What do we get out of it? I mean, they take our wonderful igneous rock and we get back their rubble to fill a very large void, which I agree needs restoration. So my question is, it's on paragraph 214. It's what the stuff is that's coming back. And it says from demolition. That to me is not excavation. And who screens the waste and where is it screened? Because demolition suggests metals, contaminants, all sorts of things. Is it screened in London then transported? Or is it transported here and then screened? It's a shame we're the dumping ground for London, but I think we've got to live with it because we need these spaces filled. But I'd like that question answered about the contaminants. Where are they dealt with and who gets rid of it?
Nick, Nick or Nick?
Thank you, Chair. I'll attempt to answer that. Nick might want to contribute afterwards if there's anything I've missed. I suppose it's like any site where material's being disposed of. It's not necessarily what we get out of this. We're operating in a world where there's only certain places where this type of material can be disposed of. You'll have seen from the report and from Nick's presentation that there's been a considerable amount of work to assess the environmental impacts of transporting material that far. And it has to be said that initially when this application came in a couple of years ago, we were concerned by those very similar points. And we wanted to be assured that the balance between the high quality restoration was sufficient to outweigh the negatives of transporting the material that far. So in terms of the carbon impacts and the number of material, the amount of material being transported by rail compared to road, etc. So it's not an easy one. The material will be construction, demolition, excavation waste. It will come from projects in and around the southeast, the London area, as we understand. There's a lot of material there, and there are not many places where that material can be disposed of in and around that location. And you'll have seen one of the graphs that Nick put on the chart that actually a lot of the more close facilities where the material could be disposed of would have to be transferred by road, and that would generate considerably more carbon emissions than if it was transported to here in Leicestershire. In terms of screening, the Environment Agency play a role in that. It would be subject to appropriate permits with the Environment Agency. Any screening will be carried out before it would be transferred, and the Environment Agency would be subject to the appropriate monitoring regime. That would be a matter for them to pick up. I don't know whether Nick's got anything further to add on any of those points. Sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot.
I don't think there's anything particular to add to that, Nick. So I suppose, would it be worth expanding on construction, demolition and excavation waste? Can range from anything from general rock, bricks, mortar, chunks of tarmac, soil, typically very inert stuff, particularly when you're talking about projects such as HS2 or Crossrail, where the majority of the material is going to be coming from cuttings or digging tunnels, etc. So you're not looking at potentially contaminated waste. Nick's already pointed out that material from construction sites is typically screened at point of origin. Obviously, that situation is not perfect, but most operators, and I have no doubt that AI in this instance will operate a system whereby any contaminated materials, such as, so when I say contaminated, I mean not construction, demolition, excavation waste, so bits of metal, bits of glass, plastic, etc., would be screened out and then taken to a separate processing facility. I think that should hopefully cover all questions. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Nick. Well, I have a proposer in Rita and a second in Les. If no one else wishes to speak. Oh, sorry, Mr. King. Need to get a swivel chair, I think.
Sorry, Chairman. I'll have to sit in the middle next time or something. I haven't got any particular issue with this application. I think it's a very good way of recycling materials, and particularly using rail to transport bulk and significant mass of items. But the clarification I was just seeking, a few times in the report, it mentions visitor centre, and then it says visitor area, and I'm just wondering, is that just loose use of language, or is there proposed to be a visitor centre? Because I've read through the report, I can't see any commitment to that. It just talks about a future one potentially in the long term, but I'm not clear on the detail. But what I do think, Chair, is this is a very important, as it is mentioned in the report a few times, opportunity to get a environmental net benefit, biodiversity gain, and create some very important habitats. And I think longer term, that's something which the authority and those other stakeholders, I'm sure, would look to try and promote as a visitor attraction. Because, and the only query I had, Chair, is that in some of the report, it talks about samples of the key geological specimens being held and retained for educational and public information purposes, but then carting them off to the British Geological Survey at Kegworth or Keyworth, if that's where they still are. So I'm just wondering how that is proposed, you know, if that's taken care of in the restoration plan to make these things accessible to the local community rather than being carted off to some museum where no one will see them again. And as my colleague for Gartree will know, they sit in a university drawer for 800 years before someone does a project and then actually gets to look at them. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Comments?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My colleagues just reminded me that condition 49 actually picks up on this. So we do require, as part of the restoration scheme, details of the proposed hides and visitor centre as part of that proposal. So that would require the applicant to submit full details to us, and we'd agree those details. But was there a second part of your question, Mr. King, that I didn't hear? Was it about the transporting off site? Sorry, I'll let you answer the question.
Yep, thanks for that, Nick. Yes, so that's in condition 49, right at the, yeah, I can see that. VI, right, I missed that. So thank you for pointing that out. But yes, it was just about the samples of the particular, it talks about different sample sizes of rock formations, and obviously they're very geologically very important, and therefore there's an educational purpose and, you know, for obviously future generations. So if these important samples are that important that Natural England says we should keep them, is it helpful to cart them off to the BGS at their headquarters, or should there not in fact be local samples retained locally that could hopefully then be incorporated into this visitor centre? Is that the plan, or am I or is that not the plan? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, with your permission. So paragraph 235 of the reports, I think, deals with this particular point in that representative hand samples of the rock types and the geological features outlined collectors systematically prior to and during filling. And then, as you say, the collection shall be archived at a suitable repository, such as the British Geological Survey's National Geoscience Centre. So I'm not sure there's any more that I or Nick can add to that. That's what the intention is. And again, I'm just going to ask Nick to see whether he knows any more intelligence about that part.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I don't know if it's possible for us to go to the last slide on the presentation, which shows the restoration plan. It doesn't come out, unfortunately, on the PowerPoint presentation particularly well, due to it not being an A1 plan. And I don't know, is that possible?
Loading it for you.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you can see the orange star, which is very small down at the bottom, and then there's a purple star, which is even smaller adjacent to it. That is actually the area for a proposed visitor centre. In terms of the rock samples as well, there has been discussion, things explored regarding placing various size rocks around the walking trail that would be incorporated as part of the restoration scheme, as well as potentially exporting them to BGS as an example. That is something that would form part of the Section 106 legal agreement and is potentially also tied up with the community fund, which was referred to earlier. Part of the reason for the slight ambiguity on this is due to the timescales, and it seems a little redundant for us to start proposing very specific details now when the final restoration will be coming forward in 22 years' time, and people may have a different view as to what they want to see then. Regardless, I believe the intention is that that will be worked out through the Section 106 agreement and then nearer the time of complete restoration discussed with the parishes, potentially by the county council as well, to ensure that that is implemented in a satisfactory manner. Thank you. Back to you, Nick and Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Are you okay, Mr. Green? Yeah, okay. Well, if there are no other speakers, then we'll move to the vote, and that's all in favour of the recommendation, which is to permit. Yes, Les seconded it. Yeah. All in favour then? Anyone against? That is carried then. Thank you. Item 13 then, moving on, is sorry, Rosie, did you speak? Okay. Right, item 13 then, delegated decisions. These are decisions taken between the 31st of December 2020 and the January the 1st, 2021. The report is just, it's a receive and note report, but if there are any questions on any items that are on that, in that report, you say so. Okay. Moving on again then, item 14. As I said, there are no urgent items. Item 15, Chairman's announcements. The next meeting of the board is on the 15th of July, and I'd like to thank you all for coming and thank you all for your contributions. Hopefully we'll be back in this Sparkano committee room for the next meeting, I hope. So